So on one hand, you have a concept of bread and circuses. And with that, the idea that just about anything entertaining is a circus. Top of that list in most people's minds would be professional wrestling, because you've got a fake sport effectively. There's real athletics going on, but the outcomes are generally predetermined. And there is a lot of acting going on. Every time. The entire acting, we'll show you the other hand in a second. The entire acting aspect has a terminology within the business, and that is called selling. This refers to as you are selling to the audience, the paid participants, to you are selling the product, you are selling the experience, you are selling the reality. When you sell something to someone, you persuade or convince them. So in the persuasion, which leads to suspension of disbelief, allowing you to get into the performance, what they call mark out, allow yourselves to be fooled. Selling constitutes the majority of it. Whether they're cutting promos, they're promoting future matches, they're starting feuds with people that they think will have a good matchup that the audience will enjoy, memorable experiences. And when in the actual matches, selling is when, somebody lays in a forearm, but, it may be a little stiff, but not like they're taking you out. But when you get hit by that, so the guy that's doing the punch, selling it, looking mean. The guy that's hitting it, selling it, looking injured. A lot of the most athletic stuff involves, with the exception of the dives and flips that some of the guys do, those are more, those ones, it's kind of falls into, you've seen videos I've done before about what kind of an asshole wants their professional athletes and wrestlers to get injured for the sake of realism. The whole point is that it's not real. And then it comes down to the quality of presentation of maintaining the sleight of hand, the kayfabe, as it were. But like when a guy does a DDT and receives a DDT, this is generally putting the arm around the neck or the head of the person and putting your full weight and dropping backwards, effectively putting them face first into the floor. Now, if you did this for real, you'd break skulls and necks, cause concussions, brain damage, could paralyze someone. It's not a move you want to do. Especially in this day and age where you can get sued for injuring your attacker. So when the guys do this, there's a level of cushioning going on, of weight distribution between the two, that the person that is giving the move, as it were, is guiding the person who's receiving or taking the bump. And the person who's receiving the move is being guided down. They're doing things with their own weight distribution so that when the actual contact point at the mat with the head happens, their body's up in the air doing something like this that distributes their weight away from the floor. And the person that's bringing them down is keeping it so that their arm hits and their head doesn't, that they're actually closed in enough that their head doesn't hit the mat. Or you may not realize it by the time the last moment they go down, they put their face like this and guide themselves in. There's all of this stuff going on. I'm not trying to totally ruin it, for anyone that doesn't already know. But if you watch it, you can see if you watch it enough. And there's an art to it. And the thing that I enjoy is when the person whose job it is to take a bunch of these and lose the match gets a chance to perform and show off, and they happen to have a really good move set and their repertoire is solid, their fundamentals are solid. If you see somebody that's like, wow, that person knows how to wrestle. And it really shines in more freestyle matches where it plays more like the video game, where each character is doing moves, and once the move attaches, the other one just goes through it. Boom, okay, consequences from that point on. Come back to selling on that. If they take a move and it looks like they landed funny on their leg, they may intentionally ham up an injury to that leg, and then that'll be the limb that keeps getting attacked, and then eventually you perform a submission move on that limb and they have to tap out. That's one of the ways through the psychology of wrestling of what they seem to be going for, is that there's these sets of moves. And if the outcome is not necessarily determined beforehand, there have been times when wrestlers have been put into a ring on television and wrestled each other live without knowing who is set to win the match until somebody beams into the earpiece of the referee who's going to win. And then the ref says, okay, you're going to pin him on this next one. And nobody ever sees him say it because it's all sleight of hand. That's why it's a combination of pantomime and wuxia and kung fu and ballet and opera, high drama, Shakespeare, stage magic, all kinds of things, ventriloquism. It is essential vaudeville, among other things. So now that we've got that out of the way, the other hand is that by watching this stuff, I come up with these concepts. And I don't mean come up with, but I possess these. Refer to my filtering video from yesterday. The concept of selling has a counterpart that is no selling. Knowing about no selling is an interesting thing, because for some people, they may have seen a similar type of behavior in real life at a few points, but not really had a term for it. When you no sell, even if it hurts, you act like it doesn't. And when they do a move that normally would knock you down, instead of just, okay, hit me again, this can be very useful. This is also a sign of disrespect if you're in the middle of a match and you start no-selling a person's moves. Refer to my videos about, I think I did one or two about Ivelisse and Thunder Rosa's issue. Ivelisse had issue with Thunder Rosa based on an allegation of events from a former promotion that Thunder Rosa had worked at with Ivelisse. And in the middle of a match, during a time where these two were having issues, they were put into a match in public to hash it out or whatever, and Ivelisse began no-selling Thunder Rosa. The problem was, Thunder Rosa is the prodigy, the ingenue, the big hot thing coming up from the underground. And legitimately so. But if there is any truth to the other side, then it's like, it's kind of like the Shawn Michaels Hulk Hogan match. You will win this match, but I will embarrass you first. Ivelisse has a lot more experience, and watching her wrestle is really good. She's really good at what she does, and so it's a real unfortunate thing to lose someone like that over a squabble like this. But what happened was, during a match that actually I think it wasn't even televised; it was on Dark, but that's on YouTube, and the internet is forever. Ivelisse no-sold a bunch of hits where Thunder Rosa was supposed to be wrecking her in front of people. And just, what? the reason I bring this up is a certain procedure that they want you to get causes your immune system to no-cell these attacks from this thing that everyone's talking about, being very coded. However, in doing so, means that people that get it that would otherwise get a cough or a sniffle or the shits and have to stay home instead go out and go about their thing because they're asymptomatic and they don't know that they have it, which is exactly what they warned about at the start a year ago, which was not the case with the actual virus, because by no-selling you allow a buildup within you, whereas if you don't get the procedure and you get sick and you get over it, and then your body defeats it. The stories that are coming out in I think it was the what was it, the New York Times? I think it was the New York Times about shedding among different populations, and I think I mentioned this yesterday a little bit. But the reason I explain no-selling is that is basically what this thing does. It makes your immune system no-sell. Doesn't mean you're not getting hit across the chest with a chop that will still leave a mark and make your breath. Ooh. You're just going to act like it doesn't. So the whole point of it is more of a getting people back to work, it seems, than... I think that was the whole point the whole time, was to prevent people from losing work time. It had more to do with that and less to do with the actual prevention aspect. Because the way it works doesn't prevent shit. And then people no-sell, don't realize that they're no-selling, go out and about and no-sell with others, and it spreads even more. Now, in a way, this is actually sensible as far as achieving herd immunity. But they're lying while they're doing it. Maybe it's because everybody's already been lied to and won't come around to the truth and they have to re-lie. But two wrongs don't make a right. As a slight aside, having said that, I think a lot of the countries that are going back into lockdowns are playing along with the reset. Their governments are playing along fully with the reset. And our government seems to be trying to do that. The people themselves are dragging their feet and being like, yeah, no, in a lot of places. On a state-by-state map, you could go red versus blue. Even in the blue states, remember these are red states with blue cities, blue patches. Other than the blue patches, the people in the red areas are done. Even if the government does lock down, send the military out, whatever, like Australia is doing. The reason Australia can do that is that they successfully did a mandatory buyback on guns. They disarmed their people, just like New Zealand did. And New Zealand went a year or two ago. They used Christchurch as their excuse. They have been basically totalitarian in their approach since then, visiting people at their home and saying, hey, let's talk about this Facebook post. The fact that if they refuse to take it down, they could be arrested. We have a different constitution, and as long as we have that as a justification, it's a tenuous protection because it is just words. It has to be backed up. That is the truth of it. So, like, France, the people aren't having it. I have no idea what the ability to own a gun is about in France. I know that the people in very large numbers with a lot of rocks are actually particularly effective. French Revolution could happen again. No idea what's going on in other parts of Europe. I know that in England, the people don't like it, but they're still going along with it. They are also disarmed. Canada's working on full disarmament. They're large countries that are spread out and still have some fairly large populations are very hard to control. What I see in all of this, what's going on with our current situation in America, is the government is going through the heuristics, the motions, and it's not working. The wand is not casting the magic spell, right? Nothing's happening. But they're still doing it anyway. And it seems like there is a fight for the consent of the governed, in the sense that they're trying to manufacture and or generate consensus or agreement of enough people to say there's more of us than there are of you. Oddly enough, they can't manage to produce any concrete numbers on the matter without there being allegations of fraud and evidence. Polls are the same way. But in other places, the governments are the same size as ours, but their country's populations are smaller, and the people have allowed themselves to be disarmed. What could happen, hypothetically, I'm not advocating this, I'm just saying this is one of those possibilities, would be if we did have a wizard savior help us defeat the system, take over, General de Gaulle, George Washington, whatever, kind of thing. And really rout the villains, get them gone. That would just be for our country. The rest of the world would probably be propagandized by their overlords still in control that an evil dictator had taken over and would make us the enemy to the rest of the world, could lead to a world war in that sense. If a similar wizard savior figure arrived in every country, or enough, that they could rout the villains completely, maybe the world would stand a chance. But every time somebody comes up that seems to be like that, they are not. People like Boris Johnson, because he was kind of the British Trump or whatever in a lot of ways. He's gone whole hog lockdowns, surveillance, mandates in a country where people are already disarmed. So they got duped. Brexit, but is it really? So to recap, no selling. That whole thing. Go back and rewatch the first half of the video. Sociology is interesting. Go back and watch the middle part. And to recap the third part, Bumblefuck and refer to that, what is that, Hanlon's Law, don't attribute to malice what could be attributed to equally or easily to incompetence. If you look at what's going on in the world, there's a bunch of stupid people going along with things because either they're like, haha, I'm going to get rich. It's like, dude, your money's not going to be worth anything. It's almost as if all the warnings that people like me have been giving this entire time for years and years and decades for some people were right, and just nobody listens because there's some kind of a fundamental human defect in the societal component, especially when it comes to getting fooled. Or more particularly, the ability to alert them to the fact that they've been fooled. So, yeah, this will upload at some point this evening. And as of recording, I've got 136. So, yeah, this concludes this video, and I guess I will do an update separately for any other updating that I need to do.